him to contradict his own brother's accusations of sexual abuse by an Ohio State University doctor.
Jim Jordan called me crying, groveling on the 4th of July, begging me to go against my brother. Begging me. Crying for a half hour. That's the kind of cover-ups that's going on there.
Jim Jordan was an assistant wrestling coach at Ohio State University. The congressman has repeatedly denied that he knew of any abuse. Joining us now is Adam DiSabato and his attorney, Rocky Ratcliffe. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here to talk about this really tough story. Adam, just to catch people up, let's start at the beginning. Your brother says that he was sexually abused by an Ohio State University doctor, Richard Strauss, between 1987 and 1991. And he says that Congressman Jim Jordan, who at that time was an assistant coach, knew about the abuse. Do you believe that as well?
Well, yes. It was well known about Dr. Strauss and the way he handled exams. They were very unprofessional, and people complained openly about Dr. Strauss to our coaches and our superiors all the time.
And in fact, you complained. As far as I understand, you went to Jim Jordan at the time. Is that right?
I went to both Jim Jordan and Russ Hellickson, the head coach. Jim Jordan was the assistant. Russ Hellickson was the head coach. And, you know, I expressed my concerns about Dr. Strauss and about being in Larkins Hall, which was not a good environment as well.
And what did Jim Jordan tell you back then?
Basically, they both told me that we were to be not to say anything to anybody in that environment that we were put in, and to be happy where we're at. And that was what they said their superiors told them.
Basically, keep your mouth shut is what you say Jim Jordan said back then.
Yes.
Okay, fast forward to a year and a half ago, 2018, and I believe that's the phone call that you were talking about. What happened when now Congressman Jim Jordan called you?
I was in Las Vegas at the time. I was eating breakfast. I was out there for a UFC fight. I was helping the UFC champ, Stipe Miocic, get ready for his fight against Daniel Cormier. And we were at breakfast, and I got a call at 8 in the morning. I looked down, and it was a Dayton number, and I didn't know who it was. I picked up, and it was Jim Jordan. So I walked away from the table, excused myself, and I talked to him for probably a half hour. He was, you know, asking me about what was going on, and I was kind of confused at the time, but I was, you know, just kind of listening to what he had to say. And, you know, I had just heard about the story because I was in flight when the story broke. I was flying out to Vegas, so I didn't really know much.
And so he was, you just testified to this. You said that he was very upset. It was your impression that he was very upset. He was, you said, crying.
Oh, he was crying.
And groveling.
Yeah,
groveling what? I mean, what was he asking you to do?
He was begging me to go against my brother's testimony, basically, and come out with a statement. And so I just listened to him and, you know, expressed that I didn't know what my brother was, what his motives. I hadn't talked to him or anything, but I said, you know, I can't really give you an answer right now. I'm in the middle of something, and I said, let me talk to my family, and that was that. And I kind of just brushed him off, you know, and that was the conversation.
Here's what Congressman Jordan said in a statement to CNN. Congressman Jordan never saw or heard of any abuse, and if he had, he would have dealt with it. Congressman Jordan would never ask anyone to do anything but tell the truth. What's your response to that, Adam?
I think it's a bold-faced lie because Dinasha Yates went to him and told him about an exam to his face, and it's been documented there were several people that went up to him, and we all complained. It was open. It was open discussion in the locker room around anywhere we were at, but mostly when the physicals came around every year, because it was a problem because Doc Strauss's lines were longer than the other doctors' lines, and what's the reason for that? They were too long. The exams were taking too long. We complained about it, but they never did anything about it.
Mr. Ratliff, this all came out this week because there was this public hearing to try to change the statute of limitations so that all of these victims could get justice. And so what is happening? What is the next step here?
Well, the next step right now is it's still in mediation. And it came out this week because the chairman, Hambly, there was two speakers, and then he asked and opened the floor, and that's when Adam stepped up. So right now it continues to be in mediation. I think from my perspective or the plaintiff's perspective, it's probably going a little slower than we would like because the plaintiff's mental state, I mean, they're still hurting. This has brought up things that in the past, they don't want to talk about. They compressed this and departmentalized this for a long period of time, and now these guys' mental health it's really hurting them. Yeah. This is kind of drug on, so we're hoping that the legislature will do the right thing, as other states, the state up north has done.
Well, we understand that. We certainly understand that this feels very unresolved for so many people. 177 young men between those years say that they were the victims of this abuse. Adam DiSabato, Rocky Ratliff.
And Allison.
Yeah, quickly.
Allison, just one other point, if I may. The media outlets keep saying 177, but there's over 350 known plaintiffs, an estimated 1,500 athletes over a 19-year period. And our sport gets a lot of attention, but the major sports such as football and basketball and tennis, it was 13 male sports over a 19-year period. This is probably the biggest sexual abuse scandal of any university in the history of our country. It's a big thing going on here, and hopefully the legislature does the right thing, and I appreciate you having us on.
And I appreciate your clarification of all of that. Those numbers are staggering. Obviously, we will follow this story. We really appreciate you both coming on to explain all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.